welcome back to another episode of The Sunny Side.
Yes, happy Monday morning.
We are here and another different setup.
We're just making the rounds through my backyard.
It's true.
It works.
Yeah, it's true. It's a little rainy today, so we didn't want to get poured on.
Yeah.
And so this is where we are. But look at this backdrop.
Yeah, we have like a nice covering, so if it does start to rain, we're good.
We're solid. I mean, if it starts to lightning, well, you pray for us because we don't want to die.
Liam will be done.
Liam will be running in the house. Liam will be like, oh my gosh, it's a tornado. Anyways, guys, we have a special guest today, and we are very excited. I don't know Sarah that well, but we have a lot of mutual friends, which is wild. And so I'm really excited to hear a little bit. I know a little bit of your story, but I'm really excited to hear the rest and welcome you on.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about you. Obviously, we know the basics. You're a wife and a mom, and so maybe tell us a little bit, like, how did you and your husband meet? Then what was your journey to having a family like? Like, what was all that like?
Yeah. So my husband and I have known each other since we were 8 years old. And we grew up in the same church and then the same school. And it was a church school, so it was really small. There was only like 5 people in 2 grades. So Connor and I were really close. We were really good friends. He liked to cycle through all of my best friends and their like little boyfriend, girlfriend, liked each other thing. But he'd always like tell me about the girl he liked and how he was feeling and if he thought it could work. And
So you were like friend zoned at 8 years old, right from the start.
Pretty much. He always thought of me as like the really nice girl. Aww. But his mom always knew that it was going to be me.
Wow.
Which is so sweet. So yeah, he cycled through all my friends and always kept close with me. And then he calls himself Lance Romance in his like high school era. So he was such a flirt, and I started seeing that, and I was like, maybe I don't like you, but I always did. And then he started liking me, but I was in our church's internship, and you weren't allowed to date in the internship. So
like you snooze, you lose.
Exactly.
You could have got in there early.
Exactly.
When you're 8 years old, but
yeah, we were always texting, but like not dating. And then he was doing like a victory lap at high school, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to come to prom with me?" And I prayed about it, and I was like, I knew he just wasn't in the right spot. So I'm like, I'm not going to prom with you, and I'm not texting you anymore. We can talk in person, but like you need to figure yourself out.
I don't want any part of Lance romance.
So that's good for you. Yeah. Okay. And then he did the internship the next year, and I saw a ton of change happen in him in that year. And then the day he was done his internship, we went on our first date, and we dated for a year. He proposed at our 1-year anniversary of dating, and then we got married later that year. And then 5 years later we had Camilla, and then 2 years later we had Georgia, and then we just had our third baby boy, Callahan.
Oh, that's amazing.
Me too.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know that about your romance story. That's pretty fun.
Mm-hmm. It was very fun.
So Camilla's getting to the age where she could be meeting her soulmate, you know? It's true. Age. You're like, wait, this is when it all started for
I'm like, tell me about all the boys in your class.
That's right.
Yeah, I'll know which one to root for.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. So you guys had a bit of an unusual journey in that your second child, your daughter, Georgia, she was born with special needs.
Yeah.
So what did that look like? Did you know during pregnancy? Was that something you found out after birth? Like how did that whole process happen?
Yeah. So George was born totally normal. There were no complications in the pregnancy. It wasn't until she was around 3 months that we were noticing, like, she's crying a lot. Like, this is exceptional. She's not eating well. So we took her to get assessed, and they were like, oh, it's a tongue tie. And we were like, oh my gosh, it's a tongue tie. Like, this is great. So we had the surgery. We did all the things, all the awful stretches that you have to do post tongue tie release. Yeah. And then she still wasn't getting better. And I remember this one nurse at a lactation consult, she was like, is she always crying like this? And I was like, yes.
Because like a lot of babies cry a lot. So what was like different? Was it the way she was crying? Was it like an intense cry? Like what was alarming about it?
It was intense and it was pretty constant. Yeah.
Like constant like screaming, crying, like almost in pain kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not just like a fussy baby.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was like something's wrong, and I know something's wrong, but I don't know what.
Right. And
So-
you're thinking maybe it's the tongue tie, it's her tummy because she's not eating.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it all makes sense. And so many people were like, the tongue does attach to the spine. So they were like, that's probably why her gross motor skills are getting behind. And I was like, whoa, like I didn't know your tongue could do that. Right. But it turns out she was falling behind because of her genetic disorders. So we had our best friend's baby, who is 2 months younger than George, side by side, and we could see clearly how much this other baby was doing and being younger than
Like
George.
physically doing, like
yeah, she was
movement-wise.
like
Okay.
babbling and swatting at things and like trying to roll around, and George was just laying there crying. And we were like, oh, like she's at the age where she's supposed to be showing milestones, and we're having a hard time keeping her head up for like 15 seconds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So then we got a referral to a doctor. He got us a referral to a pediatrician. The pediatrician saw George and was like, oh, yeah, something's wrong here.
'Cause how old is she at this point?
She's 6 months.
6 months. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that, like, I mean, you obviously knew that there were some things going on, but like that's late to figure out a pretty massive diagnosis, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know you're going to get into it, but like looking back, did like a doctor miss something? Like how, like what happened there?
Yeah. A lot of genetic, I shouldn't say a lot. There's quite a few genetic disorders that do have physical abnormalities. And so you're like, oh, like sometimes it's how like far apart the eyes are, or like there's some tells. And in Georgie's case, there wasn't any. Like she was beautiful. And yeah, and we were really chasing this tongue tie for so long. So like from 3 months on, we were doing all the physio and the stretches and everything. So we were really like, she has to be just recovering right now. Like it's just taking its time. And then on the day we saw the pediatrician, she actually called a neuromuscular specialist at McMaster and was like, I need you to see this girl. And so we got a same day appointment at McMaster. And we were like, that's so nice of them to expedite this for us. Like God's favor. And it was, but it was because things were so concerning. And so this neuromuscular doctor met with us and was like, this is so rare. This is so rare. And I was like, yeah, like I just felt acknowledged that something was wrong because I knew it. And then it was a whole year of genetic testing until we got the whole exome sequence testing, which showed that it was one of two options. And he started asking me questions. He's like, does she ever like bite her hands or like rip up her cheeks? And I was like, pardon? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. No, she doesn't. He's like, okay, because it's between these two genetic disorders, and one of them always comes with self-injury. And so we looked up this disorder that he was mentioning, and we were sick. We were sick to our stomachs, and we were like, but wait, like, how did God let this get by his radar? Like, this disease is awful, and surely George does not have Lesch-Nyhan syndrome. And so they had to take one more blood test. So they did. And then they called us the next day and they told us it was Lesch-Nyhan. And then everything crumbled in my heart. And because then you can look everything up and you can see what is likely in her future. And it was full teeth extraction, and it was being constantly restrained because their body wants to attack their brain wants to attack their body.
So at this point, when they asked you and you were like, no, like she does, so she wasn't showing any signs of like
No.
self-harm at this point.
No.
And at this point, she's a year and a half. If
Yeah.
you did that much testing. Okay. So this was like, obviously like, whoa, this is not her. This is not our case. But
No.
then to find out, so you're reading things in
Yeah.
real time to almost predict what your future could look like.
Yeah.
Wow.
And self-injury behavior typically could start anywhere from 18 months to like 5.
Okay. So you just hadn't seen it come up yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So it was on our radar from that day on.
Can you explain for the audience and even for us too, what all does that disorder entail? Like when you read, what is it saying? What's the future look like? What
Yeah.
are her limitations? What are the struggles? Like, can you just give us like basically a crash course?
Sure.
So we know what life was about to look like for you guys.
Yeah, so I'll try to remember all the symptoms, but gross motor skill development was basically non-existent. Like if she could walk, that would be great. If some kids rolled, but most didn't. They would have a condition in their mouth, so they would likely not be able to talk. And there's no way to know their cognition level, although some individuals with Leschnaien can read, and it's such a spectrum. So some kids would be really far on one side and others on the other. There was a life expectancy of 20. Although that has increased over the years with medical advancement, but we were looking at less time with her right off the hop.
Because she was more on the extreme side, like her.
We didn't know what side she was. Girls are, if you look up the literature on Leschnaien, it's almost impossible for a girl to have Leschnaien. She was one of, I think she was the 16th girl in the world ever diagnosed with Leschnaien.
Really? So it's mostly a male genetic thing?
Yeah,
That's wild.
Yeah, which also felt like such a sting because she like shouldn't have this. But because it's so rare, they couldn't tell us if it would be extreme or if it wouldn't be. So we were really just twiddling our thumbs, waiting to
16 people in the world, like the studies on that would be
so small.
hardly anything.
Yeah, females
literally
in
guessing.
the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
That's wild. Wow.
There's, I think 350. There's a lot more males, obviously, but for girls, it's very limited. And so we'd join these groups and see if there were any girls, and most of them had died. And it was just like, well, that's not going to be George. So like, we will do everything. We will move any mountain. It won't happen for our girl. Yeah.
Okay, so then you have the diagnosis. You then what happens? Like you start right away, like you're going into therapies, you're going into like trying to make life as good as it can be within the limitations she has.
We were already supported by the Niagara Children's Center. So because she was so far in her milestones, they already had her in physio, speech therapy, and occupational therapy. She did have a dietitian as well. But then we found out that with her condition, we needed to lower her purines in her diet. And it just happened that most of the things I was feeding her to try to balance her iron, which was always low, those foods were super high in purines, which can
What is a purine? I don't
you
even know.
know, I know what the foods have a high purines. Couldn't really tell you, but it does affect the kidneys, and the kidneys are
Was
very
it like the
high
richness
risk.
of it, kind of, or I
Good
guess
question.
We can chat GPT it.
Yeah,
if you'd actually
yeah,
tell. Yeah,
exactly.
fine. Okay.
The other part with the condition is that your kidneys are significantly impacted, and you can develop kidney stones. So she had kidney stones.
At a young, like
Yeah.
2-3 years old? At this
Yeah.
point, or?
I think her first scan was around like 2.5.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's when her self-injury behavior started. She woke up from a nap crying, so I got into her room, and her bed sheet was covered in blood. And I was like, no, no, like we were praying so hard that this would not be part of her story. And her, like, she had ripped up her cheeks and from the inside and her hands. And we were just like, okay, like, we're here. So we immediately started talking about full teeth extraction. But then her self-injury behavior was able to be, what's the word?
Managed.
Diverted,
Okay.
managed, yeah, with gloves. So we had gloves on her at all times. It didn't impact the cheeks, but she would typically want to go for her hands. So we were able to do that. And then we started taping her cheeks like away from her mouth. So there's quite a few pictures where she just had tape all over her face. And we kept her home a lot, mostly by her choice because she hated being out. But it was like, how do you explain to people at a grocery store or wherever that, like, oh, this is just so she doesn't rip up her mouth. Have a good day. Yeah.
That's the thing too, I think, something that people don't think about. Maybe you could walk us through, like, can you walk us through like a typical day? Like, so you get up and then what does that look like? Because I think people don't even understand the load and like the minute by minute stress and strain and pressure till you go to bed, but then it's through the night and then it's that cycle repeats. And even for the sake of maybe people having compassion to support other people, like can you kind of walk us through like a typical day would be what? Because she needed so much extra care than a typical child, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, and just to add to that, and on that, like you have another child that's older. So what did that look like to have to parent both of them and to walk your child through what this looks like for their sibling?
Yeah. So really early on, Connor and I realized that we needed to divide and conquer. So Connor was Camilla's primary caregiver and I was Georgie's. And that came with a lot of additional stress on me because like Millie wanted her mom a lot, but I was so maxed mentally with the lack of sleep and the schedules that we had for George that I was sadly like constantly annoyed just because I didn't have capacity. So those were hard years on our relationship between Camilla and I. But the schedule would start around 6. We'd have to set an alarm because she had to have so many doses of water. She did end up getting a G tube in this time as well. So she needed super high hydration for her kidneys. And we had to spread out large amounts of water throughout a 24-hour period. So meds had to start at 6 because they were every 3 hours. Typically, there were a few that were offset. But then we also had to start her hydration really early as well. And then after her hydration was done, then we had to move to her feeds. So we'd like prep her food bag and then set the time. And then while she was ingesting food, we would have to watch her face like a hawk because she would show this one sign and then she would be vomiting everywhere. And the laundry that we had to do was incredible and super disgusting, but it was a constant battle with her vomiting. And then we tried to get her out for a walk in our neighborhood, and sometimes that would go well, and then sometimes I'd be carrying her and pushing the stroller on the way home because she just wanted to be home. And then we tried to make meal times as normal as possible by like pulling her up to the table. But more often than not, Connor or I would be doing circles while the other parent was eating with Millie just to keep her walking because she liked movement. So those were really hard days until we got some nursing care, which was the fight of my life. And then we were able to experience some hours of normalcy with Millie and like actually get out with her. It was hardest years of my life.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the nursing. So how did that look? Did you have you just said it was like the fight for your life. So was it a fight to get the nursing care into your home? Is it like a financial burden why people can't get it in? Is it more like government funding? What does that look like? And also, what did that look like for you guys? I know you said you were able to get some normalcy.
Yeah.
So like what surrounded all that?
Yeah. So we had to fight to show them that we needed nursing care. They have a whole questionnaire, and it's mostly for children with trachs and vents, as well as like seizures that need like constant supervision. But there's nothing for self-injury behavior, and there's nothing for constant irritability. And there was things for tube feeding, but at some points she wasn't vomiting, so they were like, well, you don't actually need it. I'm like, but this is a good day. Like most of the time she's doing this. And so I got so many no's, and then I was like, yeah, but we are not going to be okay unless we have help. So I went up and I went up and I went up, and then I finally was put in touch with people that were like, oh yeah, like this actually isn't good. So initially we were given, I think, 14 hours a week. And because we started getting government funding, our personal health insurance could kick in. So we were able to access more funds for nursing. And so that really helped a lot. And we were like, wow, like our lives are going to get so much better. Like we'll be able to have more family time together. But what we weren't taking into account was that Georgie didn't stop crying, and Georgie still needed to be at home. So if we had nursing, it was at home. And if we wanted to have like normalcy as a family, we wanted to be home. But our home, like we couldn't regulate our nervous systems enough to like really be present with Millie, because we would hear screams so often. And yeah, that part was really tricky. So anyways, we ended up getting approved for max hours, which I think was like $280 a month, which is like a full-time gig, which is great. So we thought, but it still brought the same problem of, okay, she has someone covering her for the night, but I can't sleep if I'm hearing her cry, and like she wants me. And it really felt like Georgie's good days were my good days and her bad days were mine. And then I was starting to see how few good days she had. And eventually one of the doctors asked me that. He's like, in a year, like how many good days do you want? And I was like what's a reasonable amount? Because I know how bad and how many there are. And I was like, maybe 30. Maybe 30 good days would be great. And I'm like, but listen to me, like, that's not a life. Like, she is struggling every single day. And eventually we got approved for this. It's called unicorn funding. And we got approved for 24/7 nursing care. And we were like, wow, like this surely this will make a difference in our lives, because like there will always be well-trained nurses on her. We did all our hiring, and we had an amazing team of nurses that really like loved and cared for George. But it came back to the same problems. And then when she was admitted, they took away the nursing funding so that we had to be there all the time. And I mostly wanted to be there all the time, but I wasn't sleeping for so long. Like she'd be up for 3-hour chunks at a time. And so like I was just at a point of like complete burnout. So and I was making bad calls. Like I think one time I increased her dose because I was thinking of another drug, and I felt like sick to my stomach. Then I'm like, I just gave you way too much of that one med. And I know it's because I'm not okay, but I'm supposed to be okay for my kid. Like I'm her mom. And so all of the nursing hours that we got, they did give me the ability to like get out for a little bit if it was a good day, but overall we were home together.
And so, how old is she at this point? Like when you're talking about getting all the nursing and
She was 3. So in January of 2023 is when we got approved for the 24/7 nursing. Like I had my best friend, the one that was side by side with Georgie. And so she knew the ins and outs of everything Georgie, but like we had a wheelchair for George at this point too. And like just I don't want to have to explain to everyone what's going on with George. And so like, oh, how old's your child? And like, then they'd see her and be like, something's wrong here. And so much of it was in my head.
Sure.
But being home was like a huge safety blanket for me from having to have those conversations that I wasn't ready for.
that you weren't ready for? Yeah. And so, she's 3 years old at this point.
Yeah.
And you're getting care, but then I heard you say she was admitted. So
She was admitted a lot.
like just for different like
Yeah.
health conditions, different.
Yeah, her kidneys, a lot of constipation. Her guts were so off because of her pain. So we'd have to give her meds, like really strong painkillers that would affect her bowels. And so it would start as pain, and then she would get backed up in her stomach because of the meds, and then her pain would be coming because of how constipated she was. And then we'd have to get her in and put her on IV hydration because she was vomiting when we were trying to give her the water that she needed to help her clear everything out.
Right. And because she's so backed up, if you're backed up, it eventually has to come out.
100%. Yeah. So
One
we
way.
were always chasing things, and it just always looked like severe pain, and it always felt different. Like, no, Dr. Dave, like this one this has to be something different. He'd be like, yeah, okay, let's get you in. And he'd be like, and it's constipation. I was like, no, like we were doing enemas daily. We were doing suppositories daily. We were doing everything possible, and it was fighting a losing battle.
Right. Wow. And I can't imagine even just going back to you saying like, even with like nursing care,
Yeah.
it still felt like you were at a loss in a way because
Yeah.
you're like, you're hearing her crying, you're here. As a mom, it's like, it's got to be the hardest thing to walk. And obviously you have your other daughter, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, did I get that right? Other daughter, and fighting for that, right? Wanting to give her attention. You have the nurses, but then you have this child that you know is like unwell.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine what that feels like. No wonder.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy. Like I would go crazy.
Yeah. I was in dark places. There was an advocate social worker that we ended up getting in contact with, and she was like straight from the Lord. She was the sweetest lady, but she was a bulldog when it came to fighting for her clients. And I had conversations with her like so many times of like, I'm really not okay. And I'm like, I don't know how to be okay because my home feels like a prison of cries. And like, I can't leave Connor. But that's in order for me to be okay. Like, I can't hear her screams, but I know she's screaming all the time. So like, can I even be somewhere else and be okay? And she was like, yeah, like this is really, really bad. So like our marriage was fierce and strong, and Connor and I are such a great team, but it was like, I don't know how to be okay and be here because I am on a bridge right now. Yeah.
And how do you, because I was actually just going to ask you that about what happened with your marriage, because how do you're not even, probably for both of you, functioning in your regular self. You're constantly in crisis mode, constantly dealing with this. So could you have moments where you're able to just be like kind of outside of your life and be yourselves with each other? Like that must have been really hard.
Yeah, that was really tricky. There was like a window of a couple hours when the meds were the strongest in Georgie's system. So from like 7 to 10, she'd be typically sleeping. And so Connor and I, because we always had nursing, we'd be able to, they'd watch, Millie was sawing logs in no time. So we would just leave. They would watch George and keep an ear out for Millie. They'd text us if anything happened. But we were able to have very regular date nights.
Wow.
And that was the time where we had like really hard conversations and like processed the days. We were really good at figuring out what the other person needed. Like there were like tells that Connor was maxed and there were tells that I was maxed. So like a day after of hospital appointments meant that I needed to go home and have some quiet time. So he would take over everything and I would have like an hour to like breathe and pray and get my bearings about me. But our marriage surviving was the Lord's grace for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would say like hard intentional work on both your parts. Because I know like just hearing that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be so good to like have those date nights. But it's probably like, obviously you wanted it, but it was probably one of the last things you wanted to do when you're exhausted. You're like, I don't want to get out and leave the house.
Yeah.
But then you probably wanted it because you're like, I need some normalcy.
Yeah.
But it would have been such a
pull.
like a push and pull.
Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah. And a lot of the times we were having conversations that we didn't want anyone else to hear. And like we always have nurses in our home. And as much as we loved them, we do need to have like private conversations too. So towards the end of Georgie's life, we were approved for a group home for her.
Okay.
And this group home was in Pickering. And that's the only home that would
And
take
where were you
her.
living at the time?
We were in Niagara Falls, or just
Wow.
outside.
So it's like two hours.
Yeah. So we were like, it was a constant like heart sink conversation where like I would bring it up because I knew I wasn't okay. And I would just see Connor's like countenance fall when we had to have these conversations. And I'm like, babe, like, I don't want to have these conversations either. Like, I don't want, like, I just want her healed. Like, I want her to be okay. But like, if she isn't, until then, we need to do something for us to be okay.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, like, it's not permanent. Like, we had to keep reminding ourselves that, like, if it doesn't work out there, we can just take her home. And figure things out. So we initially said yes. And then...
And how old was she, sorry, at this point?
She's like almost 3.5.
Okay.
So we have an appointment on July 7th with the coordinator of the long-term care homes. And then on July 8th, we found out that Georgie was dying. Yeah.
Oh, like a day later.
Yeah. So she never had to go into a home.
Oh, she didn't end up going out. So what flipped in a day? Like, did you see signs of decline? Is that why she was going to go into the home?
She was already in hospital at that point. I was having these meetings from the Ronald McDonald House. And so we knew something was wrong. Her pain was awful. She had been vomiting for 2 weeks and she was on half strength feed. So like mostly electrolytes and only a small, I think she was on like a quarter strength feed. So like hardly any calories are going into her and she wasn't able to tolerate those. So they were doing tests at the time and those tests showed that her bowels were not moving enough food through to sustain life. So I was really as close as you can get to a doctor, and he's like, this is one of those conversations. And I was just like, so I'm like, so what does this look like? And he's like, this is the one where we recommend removing feeds and just letting them pass. And we were like, how do you do that? And he's like, this is the part where Georgie's body is telling you what she needs and we have to listen to her body. And so I was like, but what about like TPN, which is nutrition through IV? But Georgie had another condition that I forgot to mention called dystonia. And that means she's like always moving. She was ripping out her G tubes like every 10 days. And those things are supposed to last, they're supposed to last years. And he's like, if we did TPN, she would be ripping those things out all the time. And she was a hard poke, as they say in the hospital. So really hard to access her veins because she's so dehydrated, because she's vomiting. So he's like, we would be prolonging the inevitable by doing TPN. And so we met with the team, and we were like, okay, like we actually met with our pastors too, and we're like, this just feels like wrong on every single level, but her body is showing us that she can't do this. Like, do we just keep her here in pain? And like with the who knows how many calories going through her system every day, that she's not vomiting or in pain, like, do we keep her here until she goes on her own, or like do we do this? And so ultimately we felt like ending her suffering was the kindest thing to do by removing feeds and listening to her body.
And that must have been so hard because you're in fight mode for her whole life. Like
100%.
On to the next. This. So that's such a change to be like, this is now over, basically.
Yeah.
Like, just, we're going to make her comfortable. And the fighting is over. Like, what a crazy switch for you to even adjust to that mentality.
Totally. The day that we were told all of that, we were expecting her to have a GJ tube surgery that day, and that puts food into the small intestine instead of like going through the stomach. So we were hoping that was going to be the solution for her. But there was this tricky part where I was making all of Georgie's blends at home, and I was working with a nutritionist, and like I put my heart and soul into these blends for her. But you cannot, according to this hospital, you cannot have blends through the tube because it's smaller. So it had to have been formula, but she had been on formula before, and we were having vomiting issues then too. So we were like, we're having less vomiting now actually, but they were like, no. So anyways, I was going into the hospital that day ready to fight and be like, you cannot tell me how to feed my kid. That's the conversation I was expecting to have with our doctor. And he's like, actually, we're going to have a different conversation. And that was the one
So although she's been sick her whole life, there must have been shock to that conversation because you were not ready for that.
I had no idea that was... the admissions had just become a part of her life. So I was just...
Like, you didn't realize we're at this point.
No.
Because you're probably just like, fight, and you're not even able to see that, like, we're at the end here.
One of the tests, like the last one that they did, they told us that there was no obstruction, because that's what they were looking for by doing this contrast thing. I was like, awesome. There's no obstruction. But they were like, but that's actually the bad thing, because that means that she's just not... digesting properly or enough to sustain life. So it was a total shock.
So is Connor with you at this appointment?
No.
So what happens then? So this is what the doctor says, and then what happens?
He was working at the Ronald McDonald House, and so I called him and I was like, we need to talk. So I walked from Mac to the Ronald McDonald House, and they had a beautiful gazebo area in the backyard that we sat at, and then we sobbed, and we were like, what do we do? And then we ringed up our very new pastors at Lake Mount, and just processed. Yeah. And then, so that was a Friday, and then the Tuesday we brought her home. They did one more round of testing over the weekend to see how much she could actually consume without pain. And we saw that there was actually no amount that she could take without pain. So the minute we took her off feeds, we saw George for like 2 days.
So they send you home and they just say to you, like, what does that look like then? You're just kind of loving her, spending time with her. The feeds have stopped. And then did they explain to you, like, what's going to happen over the next little bit?
Oh, yeah. So we still had all our same nurses, which was amazing. They were like... They were amazing. We had the talk with Millie, and that was, like, as you can expect, awful. And then we knew we were just waiting for a deep sleep to come. So we weren't sure if the smiles we were seeing on her face were the last, or we weren't sure if her eyes were open. Yeah. So it's just, we called it a heaven watch. And it was the purest torture. And on the day she died, it was a Monday, and it was, I had just gotten off the phone with her doctor, and she had just been chatting with the nurse about Georgie's stats, and she got me on the phone. She's like, okay, Sarah, so based on everything we're seeing with her levels, like, it's probably going to be a couple more days. And I was like, no, Joe, like, I can't do any more days. Like, I am so sad. And I'm so done. She's like, I know. She's like, just spend the day with her, like, read some books, and, like, just do whatever you can to take care of yourself. And I was like, I had been praying this whole time. I'm like, Lord, I just want her to die in my arms. Like, that is, like, my one wish. And so I chatted with our nurse, Megan, and I was like, okay, like, they say it's gonna be another couple days, so, like, can we just take her outside with me, and, like, I'll just, like, rock her on the back patio. She's like, yep. So we get George all settled, which was, like, such a feat because of all these tubes she's attached to. And then I was rocking her, and then Emma had to come to our house to clock in, and she, like, said hi to George, and then I was like, wait a minute, George isn't breathing anymore. And then Megan came out. She was Georgie's, like, longest nurse, and George took one more breath for Megan, and then she was gone. And Connor was there at her feet the whole time, and it was a Monday morning, which is garbage morning, but there were no trucks, and there was, like, just birds, and it was just peace. And a lot of people, when they die, they have, like, really ravaging, like, gaspy breaths, and she didn't have that. It was just like she was just gone. Wow. Yeah. So as far as her departure, it was perfect. And I think God was so kind to know that, like, I couldn't do another day. Yeah.
So you're outside.
Yeah.
You have her. She literally does die in your arms.
Yeah.
And then do you feel like, I can't even imagine, like, the complex emotions that come with that, because on one hand there would be, like, unimaginable grief and pain, like, probably just excruciating, but was there also, like, a sense of relief for her that it's like, you, because to watch your child suffer their whole life is a different kind of pain too.
Yeah.
So then did you struggle with those kind of complex emotions? Like, did you ever feel bad, almost feeling relief, except you're feeling relief because you don't want your child to suffer? Do you know what I mean? It
was very complex, and our doctor had warned us about that. Like, you will feel relief when they're gone, and you will be in shock when they're gone. And I remember, like, being so relaxed and chill is the only word I can come up with after she died. I was like it was how we wanted it. And I knew she wasn't suffering anymore. Like, she actually died with a smile on her face, which I guess is pretty rare too. And like it couldn't have been any more perfect. It was like constantly dipping between relief and like, wait a minute, these are my last minutes holding my girl. And we kept her home for a while, but they said at like 3 hours after they die, you should lay them down, because it's actually like hard to move their body because they get so stiff. And then around 3, the funeral home came and took her to the home. They actually zip up bodies before they put them in vans. So like, if no one told me about that. That was like, I was watching them zip her up. I was like, oh, she doesn't need air. Like, that's right. But it was jarring and like
a trip on your emotions.
100%. Yeah.
Wow. So in that time home, when you said like you left her there, are you just like being with her? Is it just you, your husband, and Millie at this point? Who's there with you? Besides the nurses? Yeah. So we had really, really close family friends, Trisha and Emma, the best. So they had Millie. They were Millie's champions throughout Georgie's life, and they would take her while we were admitted almost always, which was unbelievable. So they had Millie when George died, and then they brought Millie to the house to say goodbye. Okay.
And then they just stayed with us until they got picked up, until George got picked up.
And that must be a hard thing to walk through, because Millie is what at this time? How old was she then?
5.
Right. So how do you what are you saying to her? How are you explaining this to her? You had prepped her a little bit, obviously. Yeah.
I think she felt the relief that we felt too, but it just came out in like 5-year-old terms. So like, she saw that Georgie was dead, and I think she kissed her, and then she wanted to go in the pool. And then she was like splashing around, and I was like, Millie, like, you're getting George wet. And she's like, well, she's dead. So like, it doesn't matter. And I was like, okay, well, she understands. And like, that is like a 5-year-old. So I'm like, developmentally, she's putting all the pieces together that she needs to. It just isn't as soft as I would have said it.
Right.
So she put together as much as she could at that age. But it has been really interesting, even just in this last year. She has really started to re-grieve, as they say in the children's grieving terms. So like, she realizes that she doesn't have a sister anymore, and she misses her, and she remembers the kicks that Georgie would give her and the smiles. And it's been a lot more later than I had expected.
Because Georgie died in
23.
It's 2025.
Yeah.
So 2 years.
Yeah.
And what I know that we talked a little bit earlier just about grief.
Yeah.
And like what that looks like, because obviously grief is different in many different forms, many different reasons why people grieve in their life.
Yeah.
But for you, what did that look like, and what can you like tell people about grief to like encourage them?
Yeah. I found that learning my limits really set me up for success in grieving. So I found that social interactions wiped me out, especially in an interaction where I didn't feel like I was able to talk about George. So I knew that if I had a social thing on one day, I needed 2 days to like just to be on my own and to do very little. And it's going to vary so much person to person, but I realized what helped me, which was being alone or with Connor, or like writing. I had a list of things that I knew I could turn to that would comfort me. I wrote a lot of letters to George, and I went on a ton of walks. Walking had been like medicine for me throughout her life, and then it really sustained me after. But yeah, I think asking questions to grievers of like, what feels the heaviest right now? Like, what memories have you been thinking about lately? Like it is tricky because so few people knew George because she was at home so often. So, like when people do like, I just want to know more about her. It's like, well, let me make you a tea. Yeah. So talking about her is medicine.
Yeah.
I was just thinking as you were talking that there must have been, so like she passes away, even you have the funeral, like you're busy with that, but then when that's done and you're home, like you haven't even lived a normal life for almost 4 years. You've been like a caretaker on little sleep, making meals, and everything's scheduled out, feeds, medication. You come home and like to
no one there, like no nurses,
nurses, no child that needs a full-time care, no to-do list that's the same,
no identity,
totally. Like, what was that like for you? Was there like a rebuilding of who you are as a person after that in some ways?
For sure. I feel like I'm still in that mode right now. I was so proud to do everything that I did for George. Like I knew, like when I'd sit at a triage desk at a hospital and I'd be like, can you list their meds? I'd be like, buckle up, because you won't even know how to spell most of these. And there's 15 of them, 15 to 17 different meds and supplements. And so like, they'd be like, and how do you spell that one? And I was just like, I just felt like so in my element. And I knew that like I was doing impossible work for her. And it was like, it was the hardest job duty that I got to do, and I had pride in it for sure. And then when it was taken away, it was just like,
and a sense of purpose, probably.
Oh, 100%. My days were like, I never knew what the day was going to look like, but I knew exactly, like it was worship to rock her in her like hardest moments. And it was my duty to make her these blends that I really believed were going to change everything. And every moment was pretty accounted for. Wow. Yeah.
We have a lot of followers that are believers.
Yeah.
And probably a lot that aren't.
Yeah.
My question to you, because I mean, you know, I think nobody wants to picture losing a child.
No.
You were never meant to do that. It's not the circle of life.
No.
It's not the way that it goes, right? And so even as a believer and a Christian myself, I feel like it would rock my faith.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Like that it would send me into a place where I'm like, God, are you serious?
Yeah.
Not that I would doubt his existence.
Sure.
But I think that I would doubt, like, how? Like, how are you a good God allowing this to happen? Because even hearing your story, I'm like, it's always that question when you hear about something like this, like a death or something.
Yeah.
And usually it's the first question I ask is, I'm like, God, why?
Yeah.
You could have
healed.
Yeah. You could have stopped it. And I know, I can quote the scriptures up and down to you.
Yep.
For the goodness of God, blah, 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 blah. Like all the things. God works all things for good. But like, what did that look like for your faith? And what did those scriptures mean to you? Like when someone said it to you, were you kind of like, that's not help? Like, walk me through your faith journey a little bit there.
So that's still a very in process part of my life right now. I have a unbelievable Christian therapist, and we just my last session with her, I was talking about all the miracles that I saw in Georgie's life. But the main one that I wanted was the purest prayer I could have prayed of, like, Lord, just please heal her body. Lord, please help her to sleep. Like, she's writhing in pain in my arms. I'm rocking her for hour 3, and I'm praying the same prayer this whole time. Like, just let her sleep. Like, just let her body heal itself while she rests. Like, I didn't want the complex special needs funding. I didn't want an accessible room for her, which was like another miracle that we had. Like, we had so many huge miracles that made life for her a lot easier. But like, you can't enjoy anything when you're in excruciating pain all the time. So I was like, why, like, I would have traded all of those miracles just for her to have healing. And that's something I wrestle with, but I don't expect to know the answer this side of heaven. Like, I can still have days where those questions rage, but I know that God is good. And I could not have walked through her life and her loss without the Lord. Like, that was, I tried it for 2 weeks, and it was highly don't recommend. 2
weeks. I tried it for 2 weeks.
I was miserable. So it was right after we got the diagnosis for George. I was like, you messed up, Lord. Like, that this disease exists. Never mind that my daughter has this disease. Like, I have nothing left for you. Yeah. And then I proceeded to be miserable for 2 weeks.
Yeah. I remember a pastor saying to me once when I was in a bad place, and he's like, wrestle with God on this.
Yes.
Like, scream it out.
Yes.
Swear. Do whatever you need to do, because he can take that.
Yes.
He can take that. So I'm sure in those 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
You would have to feel that. But I'm like, in one breath I'd be like, God, why? But the other breath I'd be like, there's no way I can do this without him.
100%. It's quite the tension.
It's like, and I guess my other question to you would be, you went on to have another baby.
Yeah.
And boy or girl?
Boy.
And what's his name?
Callahan.
Oh, that's right. We said it at the beginning. Sorry.
No,
Callahan.
that's okay. That's
There's been
okay.
so much information. Callahan. And so how old is he now?
He's 8 months.
Okay, so still little.
He's little.
And what did that look like? Was there like any fear in you to be like, could this happen again? Or like, was there any, or even watching the milestones that he's hitting that Georgie didn't?
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like? What does that feel like? How does that, is he like the redemption story? Is it, walk me through that.
So this is something I haven't shared before. So I am a carrier of Leishmanian. So that means that for girls, it's basically impossible to have a child with Leishmanian if it's female. It's a 50-50 chance if you have a boy with that they'll have Leishmanian. So we were considering going through IVF to eliminate those odds, but like the problem is, like, I'm not infertile. I'm very fertile according to IVF doctors. But there was just some wrestling that would have been involved if we did IVF, and Connor was like very against this. To go back a little bit, on the day we got the news about George, I got a call from an IVF clinic that we had met with the year before, and they were like, oh, just so you know, you're off the wait list for the provincial funding. So we were like, this is the Lord. Like 20 minutes after we learned our daughter's dying, we get this call. Wow. And so we just thought, like, it has to be the Lord. But then when we realized what that could mean, we were like, Connor just was like, no. So he canceled the cycle, and I wept. I wept after he did that. I'm like, I know we can't do this with, like, there's just, I can't do that again. Like, you will lose me if we have another child with Leishmanian. And then we had an oopsie, and we got pregnant. We found out at 7 weeks that it was a boy. And I wept. again. And I told my therapist, and I was like, I'm not going to be okay. Like, if they have Lesh Nyan, like, Connor had switched his job at that time, so all of the benefits that we had for George, we wouldn't have had. I'm like, we will not be financially okay. I will not be mentally okay. Like, I was just going on and on and on. And she was like, tell the Lord. And I was like, okay. And then we did an amnio test. Trish took me to that.
Aww.
I love her. Yeah.
Amazing. So how early is that? Like, how early can you find out?
It's not. So 7 weeks, 17 weeks. I had 10 weeks of being in like limbo, of like being mostly not okay. And then some days being like, maybe the Lord will be good this time. Yeah. It was really hard.
So you take the test. How long till you find out?
It was 10 days.
Oh, wow. That's a long 10 days.
It was long.
And then you found out
yeah.
that
She left a voicemail and was like, I have good news for you. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh.
And then, yeah, he's like, a lot of people have different like genetic mutations that they don't even know about, like me. Yeah. But he has nothing. Like he has a completely clear,
like pure genetics.
He's as pure as they come.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to. So in all of Georgie's testing, is that how they found out that? Did you end up getting tested? Like,
Yeah.
how does that work? Like, how did you find that out? Because how would you even know that?
Yeah, it was because of the genetic testing. So they would draw her blood, draw my blood, and Connor's blood.
Okay.
And then that's when the markers came back that I was a carrier. But
And-
they still didn't think it was possible because she was a girl.
Okay, and then how does that look? Like, how would have you received it? Like up the line? Like, how does that?
It
It's
could
just
have
a-
been a spontaneous mutation. So
yeah.
it might just have been me. It potentially could have been passed down from my mom, but there's no one in our family history that's had Lesh Nyan. So it's very,
like a random.
very random. Yeah.
And that's how. But you found out through the testing. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, your story, again, I had heard bits and pieces. I had seen people posting because obviously you had a lot of this on
Yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah.
And so I had seen like bits and pieces, and I remember seeing that Georgie had passed and not knowing,
Sure.
much, but
Yeah.
just hearing your story, like I mean, you are definitely a powerhouse. You're like, I just look at you and I'm like, I think I would be I don't even know how you're like put together today. Like I just would be a puddle on the floor. I don't know how you get over it.
Yeah.
And not that you get over it.
No, I know. I know
That's
what you
the wrong
mean.
word.
I get it.
But like, I don't know how, but I guess it really is talking. Like, I have a cousin, she's actually going to be on in a couple weeks, who lost her daughter very, very young age to brain cancer. Ugh. And, I talked to her about it. And one of the biggest things she says is, I want to talk about Zoe every day.
Yes.
And I think that's the line that people like, they don't know what to say.
Yeah.
They're like how's, like, they don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But from what I've heard and what I've walked through with different people is like, no, like, we want to talk about them.
Totally.
They're a part of our life and we don't ever want that memory to fade. And so I think it's amazing that you can come on and share your story, and that you do it with like online and different stories. Like, I think that's incredible.
Yeah. I do really feel that I've been able to talk through things that people feel but might not feel comfortable saying in crowds or larger groups. And I feel like it has been like a purpose that George has left me to validate, to love on people that have gone through and are going through the hardest parts, because I'm like, oh, I get you. Like, let me love on you. Yeah.
Yeah, I just, like, as you're talking, I was just thinking back to just, like, the memory of, like, her funeral.
Yeah.
And thinking, like, it's just such a hard thing to grasp. Like, there shouldn't be, like, a tiny little casket.
Yeah.
And, like, parents who are just broken
Yeah.
hearted and saying goodbye to a child. Like, even then, I just remember watching you that day thinking, just being in awe of you and thinking, how are you doing this? How are you like getting through it yourself? But then, yeah, you were such a amazing encouragement to so many other people, and you're supporting everybody else through it when you're the one who's just lost their child in really like a horrific way.
Yeah.
Like, to see them suffer for
Yeah.
day in and day out for years.
Yeah.
Like that, I just think the world of you. I have so much like respect and admiration for you, and I just
mutual.
think like obviously, you know, I don't feel like God does things to people, but I can see why he maybe would have allowed you to walk
Sure.
through this, because you've just done it with such grace and been such an encouragement, and the way that like your life and your story is going to impact so many people. You really can see the good in it, right? Where it's a horrible thing. And
Yeah.
sometimes I hate that when people are like, God works all things together for good. It's like, I know, but that's sort of insensitive. But in some ways too, right? Like
Yeah.
with this, I'm like, no, but seriously, like I can see how God is using you.
Wow.
Even, it's funny because even, this is kind of a random thing, but when you were talking earlier about like sourdough and how you love like measuring the scale and all the
Yeah.
numbers, I was like, yeah, she was the one. I feel like I wouldn't be like, people would be like, people now would be like, what painkiller did you take the other day? I'd be like, I don't know. Like, I would be so scatterbrained. I feel like you would just, I could see you like at the hospital, like, well, in alphabetical order, it's this, and it's exactly this much, because like the precision and the care to detail, and you in the most awful way, like you were the right one for the job, you know, like you just all of the skills that you have and all your strengths just like lended perfectly to be like the most incredible caretaker and mom. And
That means so much.
maybe as we wrap up, just kind of going off what you said, can you share with us like a couple like highlights of Georgie and some things that you just like loved about her, and some happy, like your favorite happy memories of her?
Sure. Okay, so it ended up being the month before she died, like to the day. We were invited to this gala. It was raising funds for a pediatric hospice, and it was also for respite. So my speech was targeted towards the respite side of things, having no idea what was ahead, but it was called White Night. And so Georgie got all dressed up. She was in this beautiful white dress, and like her eyes lit up when she saw this dress. I was like, you live your life in sleepers, because like you're at home all the time. I'm like, should I have like dressed you up more? But anyways, we had this adorable dress for her. We had this like metal floral crown in her hair, and she was just like, she normally doesn't like crowds, she doesn't normally like music, but she was like infatuated with this violinist that was playing, and like it was the happiest day that Georgie had in her life. And it was just so beautiful to see her nose scrunch smile, and her like eating up all the attention of the people fawning over her. And I was there with two of her nurses, and we were all just like, who is this girl? Like, this is amazing.
I was meant to be a princess.
She honestly was. She honestly was.
Princess era.
Yeah. So we got so many beautiful photos, and like this nose scrunch that she always had, and like this eye contact that George and I would share was just like, I can tell if you're sick of this iPad thing. Like, I can tell if you want something on my plate. I can tell you what you want on my plate out of like multiple things. Like, we just had this like beautiful connection where, yeah, like I don't think I have the same. It just looks different than with Cal or with Camilla, but like I felt like there was a part of my brain that was inside her, so I could just read exactly what she wanted, and it was beautiful what we had. Wow. Yeah.
Sarah, this is I'm not sure what we look like at this point. I'm a little nervous to face the camera.
You're actually really good. You guys both
I
did
feel
good
like
on
we
your
should have
masking.
had
I'm not
Kleenex.
big,
That was like a
tears down my face crier.
Oh, wow.
It is more like I am
Dabbing.
always having to do this. It's probably a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
I'm like a stone wall.
I just clearly couldn't stop. That was just
Me too.
like sad and tragic, but beautiful and inspiring. Like all the things. I feel like this episode was probably amazing because we hit everything.
we did. We hit it all.
Thank you so much for coming on and
Oh my
sharing
gosh.
like so generously and so openly.
Of course.
And we just really appreciate it. And
Thanks for having me. This is so nice.
Oh, it was amazing. It was awesome. And you really, I mean, if there's any story that brings like the sunny side to a hard situation, like what an amazing example you guys are, and your sweet little family and
Yes.
chunky little cow.
Chunky cow. Love him. Yeah.
Chunky boys are the best.
They are.
they are.
Oh, yeah.
I prayed for a chunky baby when but boy, specifically more
Sure.
boy. I was like, I want and Zeke was like like my son was so chunky, like rolls on rolls, and I just wanted to eat him.
Oh, I know.
Like, just want to bite him.
I know.
People don't understand that, and I'm
No.
like, you want to bite them.
It's so true. Especially
Like-
like arms and legs. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
they're
like
so
you just want to
squishable.
squeeze them, right? But like I do think that everything Pam just said, like, yeah, just your story really is the sunny side. But I even just look at like Cal's life and
Yeah.
just am like, wow, he is like a true like gift from God to be like, here is a reward.
Yeah.
Like in the purest,
Yes.
in the purest
Yes.
form, right?
I
And that's just
know.
God's goodness being
Totally.
like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Here you go. Like,
Yes.
here's a gift. So, wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
And sharing your story. And I really do, pray that as you continue to share your story, that like people can hear your heart and like
Yeah.
lives can be changed. That even going through like literally the lowest of lows
Yeah.
of lows, that there really is something bright that can come from it.
Totally. Totally.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Thanks, guys. We will see you next week.